So this right here might look like a regular old Game Boy Advance SP, but it's actually one of these really cool emulation boxes that can run just a whole bunch of console games. Specifically, it is the RG35XX SP, lovely name of course, from Anbernic, and they sell a good variety of these handheld consoles in different form factors, but we're not going to be using this thing as a game console today because that's like what it was meant to do, which makes way too much sense for this channel. No. What we're going to be doing is installing desktop Linux on this console. Why? Do you really have to ask that anymore? I mean, come on. Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. So we're just going to jump right into this. I've got the GitHub repository opened up that we're going to be using today from Mr. Jack Spade. This allows us to get XFCE running on this device. And I already have the SD card that came included with my console plugged into this computer. So you're going to want to go here and just download, since we're on Windows here, I just hit download zip. You could, do it through Git if you want to. But yeah, you want to download this entire repository. Although you could go the route of just using one of these pre-made images and just flash it to your SD card. There is a 64 gig and a 16 gig one available, which is, a lot more straightforward, but we're just going to go through the installation process from scratch here. So what you have to do is just copy the files from this repository over to the SD card, and it's in ROMs/apps. So we're going to go to the root of the card, go into ROMs, and go into apps here. And there is all this other stuff here, but I think we can just paste this in here. It doesn't say to delete anything. And by the way, you're going to see in a minute here when we turn on this console, there are a ton of ROMs that just come pre-installed on the SD card, which is kind of cool. And since we have everything copied over, we can go back into ROMs here and just go into, I don't know, let's see, GBA here. And you see, we just got hundreds of ROMs in here. We can go into, I don't know, Dreamcast. There's 13 files in here. I mean, that does include this images folder, but we got 12 ROMs. There's a ton of stuff in here. Every single one of these folders has stuff in them. It does vary, how much. Like with Super Famicom here, we have 430 items, or 429 minus that top folder, which this is the images that show up, in the menu. But yeah, so you definitely it would take you a while to get bored with the, included ROM set that's on here. But yeah, so we're just going to close out of this window. That's pretty much everything we have to do on the computer side of things. Now we just put this SD card back into the console, connect it to Wi-Fi, go through the installation process, wait around and have it reboot, and we should be able to launch into the XFCE desktop environment. So let's see if it's as simple as it's supposed to be. I say that because you guys probably know by now how things just love to go wrong on this channel. But yeah, I guess we can take a little look at this device. It is modeled after a Game Boy Advance SP, but we've got two sets of shoulder buttons. You've got a USB-C and an HDMI out, or mini HDMI here on the top. On the bottom, you have two micro SD card slots as well as a headphone jack, volume control on the side. On the other side, we have a power button and a reset button there. And yeah, you open it up, you've got, your layout and everything from a Game Boy Advance SP. So yeah, we're gonna have it turn on here. And what we have to do is, first of all, connect this to Wi-Fi. So we're gonna go over here to settings, and we'll go down to network settings and get this thing online. And there we go, we're online. So now we can go into the, I don't believe it's App Center, or maybe it is. Yeah, we go into App Center, go into Apps, and select our SD card, and we scroll down to Install XFCE. Now, it says on the GitHub page that the system will freeze for a few minutes, and that's actually the happy path. If it doesn't appear to freeze, there's a problem. So, everything's going to plan as of right now. Alright, well, we got a loading failed error message down there for a PNG, which might be a bad sign. Alright, well, all it ended up taking was a restart. We just had to let it sit on that screen for a while. It finished up, restarted, and now if we go over into that same App Center, and we go to our apps, if we scroll down in this list, we should see XFCE. And if we run this, it should just immediately exit. Okay, cool. Let's try that again. Maybe it didn't install correctly. Yeah, it just immediately exits. Interesting. Well, we can try the install XFCE again. Oh, and you can probably see I did plug this into the wall so the battery is charging, because I did not want that to die during the installation process. Yeah, and we get that same loading failed message for text.png. Now, I'm looking at the GitHub page and it says that it initially won't be able to render text, but then it will finish installing the components required to do that, at which point you'll be able to see what it's doing. So I feel like we should see like a verbose output or something like that. I'm going to go ahead and just let it sit here again, but in the meantime, I'm going to go and download one of those pre-built images and then write that to another SD card so we have that on hand in case we can't get this installer to work. Alright, so here's the current situation. I went back to the computer here, I put the SD card back in, because what ended up happening was, unlike last time where the console was able to restart and go back to the main menu, it just kind of hung on the on that screen with that error message, and didn't seem to, get past that or anything. So I just ended up force powering it off, and yeah, we're back here now. So what I did is I went back into the ROMs folder here and into apps, and inside of here we've got an install-xfce.log file, which is very useful because this shows us exactly what the installer was trying to do. And the first interesting thing is it looks like we've got some permission issues here. It doesn't have the right privileges to run these commands, and it can't change ownership here. Now, the GitHub page doesn't make any mention about, elevation or, privilege escalation, anything like that. But it's not just that, because if we scroll all the way down, you see right here towards the bottom, we get all these no space left on device errors, which leads me to believe that we were supposed to remove all of the ROMs from the SD card before we, started this installation process. So what I've done is I have backed up the card, which I actually did anyway before even starting recording this video. And we're going to go in here and just basically delete everything out of this ROMs folder. And then we're just going to recopy everything back over and try to go through the installation process again. Now, by the way, this system already runs Linux. The operating system it's currently running is Linux-based. It just has, that UI on top of it. So all we're really doing here is, running that sh script to just install the XFCE desktop environment, and then we start that. So what we're going to do is, since we know that the space is an issue, I am going to just go back here into ROMs. We're just going to do a Control-A, Shift-Delete, wipe everything from the drive. What? Wait. How the hell is this 596 gigabytes on this 45.9 gigabyte card? That doesn't make any sense. I already backed this up. If we go to the D drive here, this is the folder that I just copied everything over from the drive. And it's of course going to be 42.9 gigabytes in size. And if we go in here, the ROMs folder is 42 gigabytes in size, the vast majority of what's on here. I don't know how the heck is it getting to 500 something gigabytes? Is that because of there's no way that it actually is that size. Oh my gosh, look at all this. Yeah, so we got some corruption going on here. And yeah, this is probably because I just force powered off the console while it was installing. So we have all these files that are like reading as 1.8 gigabytes. The largest one is 3.99 gigabytes in size. Okay, well, I got concerned when I saw that it was deleting that much data, because I was like, wait a second, is it just wiping my entire hard drive? But yeah, we're just gonna go ahead and wipe everything in the apps folder and just let it delete 553 gigabytes worth of data. There's an unspecified error deleting the source folder. Let's try that again. Alright, then let's skip it. Yeah, it's having trouble with something inside of... Let's try to go into this folder, delete everything. Maybe? Maybe not. Alright, I think I'm just going to format this entire card. And then we're going to go to the backup folder here, and I'm just going to copy all the folders aside from the ROMs for now. Oh yeah, and by the way, as per usual, I did go to the issues page on the GitHub repository, and there is no mention of that, error message that we were getting. So evidently nobody else has posted about that issue in here, although I did see this failed install. This was posted on July 21st. And this person is having the issue that we were having when we had, I guess, quote unquote, successfully installed this the first time, where, we tried to launch XFCE and it said loading and then just immediately quit with that exiting screen. This person's having that same problem, but with the installer. And then this person here provides a solution. And this was actually 2 days ago as of me recording this video. So we have a few things here that we can try if this installer fails again, but freeing up this disk space will definitely solve those disk space errors that we were getting at the end of the log file. And I think it might solve the permission errors as well, because I believe I've seen this happen before with Linux systems, where if you're running out of space, it will just like say that, permissions denied, because it's not allowing you to write anything to the disk because it's almost running out of space. We're going to, this is inside of the apps folder in the backup. We're going to copy everything in here and go over to the drive. We're going to make a ROMs folder. And then inside of here, we're going to make an apps folder, go in there, paste everything. And then we will grab everything inside of the zip file that we downloaded from GitHub, paste that into the apps folder. And after about 25 seconds, we should be good to go. And believe it or not, we are good to go. You can see I've got XFCE running here on the console, and it's, well, working perfectly. We can use the D-pad to move the mouse pointer around. We can use the left trigger to left click the mouse. We can right click with the right trigger, and we can also plug in a USB keyboard mouse, which we will do momentarily here with this adapter. But I first want to mention a few things that I did to actually get to this point. First things first, I know that the GitHub page says that this wouldn't have worked on a modified stock OS image, but here's the thing. The console came with all of these ROMs on it, so I thought that was the stock configuration, and then we didn't need to do anything. So that's why I tried to just copy the files over to the SD card without modifying anything. But it turns out, like we already saw, that that is not the case. You basically have to, have enough free space for that script to actually install XFCE, which makes sense. So we had to just remove all the ROMs. Probably not all of them, but I just did it anyways just to make things easier. One thing that I also tried to do was update this system to version 1.0.7, which updates the underlying Linux installation on this console to a 64-bit distro. This change was made back in version 1.0.5, and this device was previously, and is currently, running version 1.0.3. Now, I was able to get XFCE to work on 1.0.3 before I even tried any of this other stuff that I'm going to tell you about, but I wanted to use a 64-bit image because I figured, we should try to get this working on the latest release of the software. So I downloaded version 1.07, wrote that to the SD card, and then copied over the XFCE install files to the SD card, but when I would try to run the install script, it would just immediately exit, just like we saw mentioned in that GitHub thread that I talked about before. And surprisingly, for like the first time in this channel's history, the problem I was having was the exact same problem that person was having, and all I had to do was do what that person did, and it actually worked. It actually booted into XFCE. I was like so amazed. However, things quickly went wrong because the D-pad and shoulder buttons would not control the mouse pointer. You had to plug in a USB keyboard and mouse, which I thought, okay, no big deal. We can just use that just fine. But sound did not work, and the system would just eventually freeze up after a while, and you would have to force power off the system. So that basically makes it unusable. So then I thought, okay, maybe I could try version 1.0.5. That was, again, the first version to implement the 64-bit Linux distro, because, again, the whole reason I was trying to do this was to get, a 64-bit system running on this thing. But that did not work either. So we're back to 1.0.3 now, which is what I got working before I tried any of this other stuff. So I basically just wasted a bunch of time, but hey, at least we know that this is the best experience that we can get. So I've had this device charging for a while. I'm going to unplug the charging cable, and we're going to plug in this USB-C to USB-A adapter that I've got an Apple keyboard and mouse plugged into. And when I do that, you can see I can move the mouse pointer around with the mouse. I can open up, you know, terminal here if I want to, and we'll just choose this terminal here, and I can type, and, you know, it works totally fine. So now we can mess around with a desktop Linux environment on this tiny little frickin' screen here, which is pretty cool. Now, in terms of applications, there is not a lot of stuff on here. We do have a web browser, which is great. So Firefox is on here. We've got a calendar and a time program. We have some system utilities, you know, terminal. We just saw that. And yeah, so we're just going to hop into the web browser. I figured that's a good place to start. Now, spec-wise, just to read all this stuff off here, this thing has a quad-core ARM-based CPU at 1.5 gigahertz. It's got a dual-core GPU, and it has 1 gigabyte of RAM. So that's definitely going to make it, you know, if we're going to try to watch like YouTube videos on this thing, that is probably going to lag behind, I would imagine. This is version 113.0.2, of course, the 32-bit release. Let's see when this version came out. This was released on May 23rd, 2023, so over a year ago now. So yeah, I mean, this is going to be able to display like modern websites just fine, but let's go to YouTube and see how this thing handles playing back YouTube videos through a web browser. Also, one thing I've been noticing throughout filming this is the speaker on this thing loves to make a lot of intermittent whirring noises. It is pretty annoying, but I don't know if that's a thing with just my unit here or if that's something other people experience with these consoles, but it is able to play audio, so when we hit play here, you'll see the audio coming through. And it's actually playing back like pretty decent. Of course, what quality are we at? Yeah, 360p. Now this thing has a 480p screen, so you know it doesn't make any sense to go anything higher than 480. But why don't we just try that and see, you know, how well that it does. Let's maybe just skip around a little bit here. Let's go to the good old Half-Life chapter. Actually, no, I should go back to the beginning where there's like a lot of motion so we can see if it's dropping a lot of frames, which it probably will be. Yeah, it's definitely it's definitely dropping frames, but the audio track is totally fine. Yeah, let's maybe try, oh boy, if I can get to the pause controls, there we go. Yeah, I mean, it is definitely struggling even just to like, you know, show the play controls and everything while you have the video playing. Let's go down to 144p, the lowest possible quality, and let's go back to the beginning here.
You know, if you would have told me 10 years ago that Apple would one day allow emulators in the App Store, I would have said you were on some OS X.
It does seem like it is a little bit delayed, and I think we are still dropping frames even on...
Right on your iOS device.
I mean...
So, of course, that's what we're going to be doing today.
Yeah, like it's definitely, you know, it's still, I mean, obviously this is not going to be the best possible playback quality, but hey, it's technically able to play back YouTube videos from just regular YouTube on this thing, which is pretty cool. Why don't we go and just take a look at what other applications that we have available to us. So we already saw terminal. Now we have the file manager here, obviously. Now we are logged in as the root account, so it is going to give us this warning up here that, you know, not to screw a bunch of stuff up. We also have mail reader, but this, like the web browser thing, should be a shortcut where we can just select an application, which we don't have a mail program on here. So yeah, we'd have to, you know, download one and add that there if we wanted to use it. We got, you know, a bunch of settings under here. We've got under accessories, we have bulk rename, mouse pad. We've got, now there is this, yeah, this onboard right here. This is the on-screen keyboard. So this is really useful. Let me actually just start it up here. Now, if you don't have a USB keyboard plugged in, this will come up, you know, assuming you have the auto show when editing text enabled, which is the default setting. This will come up when you just click on a text box. There's also some customization options in here though, which is pretty neat. If we go under theme, You've got this Model M one, which I think is really cool. Not exactly like a Model M, but you know, it's trying its best. I guess you could say. So yeah, you got a few different themes in there, some more customization options. Definitely a necessity for a setup like this. You got a couple games on here, or well, you actually don't, because this games icon just gives you a failed to execute command. This is for like GNOME games, I guess. So yeah, you got that. You got Firefox and X11 VNC server. You got some media players. You got or just one media player. You have a volume control. You have a calendar program and a time program, and then some utilities under the system folder here. So yeah, I mean a pretty bare bones install, but I mean it's not like you're going to be really doing a whole lot with this. In fact, I would imagine the primary thing you're going to be doing with this is browsing the web, because that is a huge functionality that you gained from installing XFCE on here. Let's go ahead and why don't we try to download something? Why don't we try to download Classic Cube? We haven't featured this game on this channel in a little while. So we'll go to the website. Now, I believe we are going to have to get, because there is a version specifically for the Raspberry Pi, because the regular Linux installer here is not for ARM. So we're going to have to go to see all downloads. We can also try to play it in the browser too and see how well that works. And we'll go to Raspberry Pi. We'll get the 32-bit release, and we'll download that. Wow, there is not an archiving program on here. What we can do is open up terminal, and we should be able to just use the tar command and extract it that way. So let's go to our terminal emulator, and let's cd, where is this, home, I think root downloads, and let's see, there it is. Okay, so it should be tar-xvf classiccube.tar.gz. There we go. And so now we have this application. We should be able just to double click, and there it is, initializing font cache. This can take several seconds. All right, we'll let it do its thing. And then of course it has to download some resources, so we'll let it do that. And let's do the classic mode and just do single player. And it crashed. Okay, so I got a little bit too excited there, I guess. Unhandled signal, SIG, SEGV, code 1. Signal for memory access violation, trying to read or write from to a memory area that your process does not have the access to. Well, it is running as root, so it should have all necessary privileges. But yeah, it could be that it's running out of memory, or maybe just video memory specifically. Well, here's something rather funny. The in-browser version of Classic Cube works just fine, although I just got out of the game there for a second. But yeah, I mean, we're here on the web browser, and we can totally play the game. I mean, we are getting a pretty low frame rate here. We're getting, what, 10 FPS? Now down to, I mean, you can't really see the, let me actually get out of this and move the window over so you can see the FPS a little bit better. So yeah, we're getting like, okay, 12 FPS after this freaking thing from Firefox moves out of the way. 11 FPS, 12 FPS. So yeah, not the greatest performance. We also don't get sound in this version either, and it uses an alternative texture pack, and we can't apparently connect to as many servers as we can in the desktop version. But I mean, just for a little test here, it works totally fine for our purposes. One thing I do want to do is go into settings here and see if we can modify the video settings, maybe get some better performance. So we'll go to graphics options. Now the view distance is set to 512. We could go all the way down to 8, but I'm curious because I see we're on VSync here. What if we get off of VSync? All right, well, here it is at limit 60 FPS, and the performance is like exactly the same. So, well, we are getting a little bit better. We're getting up, I saw 17 FPS there, but you see now we're down to 9, 4, 5. Yeah, so that is not super great. So we are gonna, have to lower the render distance here. Let's just go down to, oh yeah, and when you hit escape, it like brings your mouse pointer back, but it doesn't open up the options when you have to hit escape again. But let's go to graphics options and see if we can just bump this all the way down to the lowest value, which is 8. Oh, and if you were wondering, you can use the D-pad, you know, obviously to move the mouse pointer around, since that's what it does. So you can move around in the game like that, but we don't have W, A, S, and D mapped to any of these buttons, so you're going to need to have a keyboard plugged in to actually move around. But we can adjust the camera view with the D-pad, so we can just like do that, yeah, sort of awkward setup, but having a keyboard and mouse really just makes the most sense. But yeah, here at the lowest possible render distance, we are getting, I see 23, 19, 23 FPS, 21. I mean, you cannot really see like more than 2 feet in front of your face, but it actually runs the game. Like, I'm honestly pretty impressed. Not that there would really ever be a point in doing this, but I mean, I feel like that's kind of the staple of this channel at this point. We just do really pointless tech experiments like this. We have for a long, long time. And yeah, that I think pretty much wraps up this video on getting desktop Linux working on this Abernink RG35XXSP. I just recited that off of memory. Let's see if I actually got that right. I got the box here. RG35XXSP, yeah. Game Boy Advanced SP lookalike console thing. If you guys enjoyed this video, definitely be sure to give it a thumbs up, get subscribed, maybe consider becoming a patron or a channel member to get early access to these videos before anybody else. But either way, I just want to thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.